I wanted to open this evening's talk with just a few lines from a poem by Kenneth Rexroth. As long as we are lost in the world of purpose, we are not free. As long as we are lost in the world of purpose, we are not free. So lost is the key word there, because we all have purpose. We have purposes and we use them. Hopefully we are not used by them. Tonight I wanted to talk about the practice of patience. The condition in the world this last year has required us all to be very patient. And I imagine that the year upcoming is going to ask even more of us in these terms, with the conditions that are ripening out of the chaos of the 2020 year. So it behooves us to think and practice and reflect deeply on patience. And how it relates to our vow, our bodhisattva vow, to bring caring and attention, careful attention to all of the circumstances in our life. Without patience, we increase our suffering tenfold, manyfold. And patience has many faces, which depends on the momentary conditions and that are always changing. So patience feels differently and shows up differently for each of us, depending on what's going on, and our own condition and the conditions that we're meeting. Patience is one of the paramitas, one of the perfections, kshanti. It's one of the 6 paramitas. There are 2 systems. One is the 6 paramitas and one is the 10 paramitas. The 6 paramitas, which include dana, which is generosity, and sila, which is morality or precepts, virya, vigor, dhyana, which is concentration, and wisdom, prajna, and then kshanti, which is patience. These are the Mahayana perfections. And then there's the Theravadan perfections, which are tenfold. They're 10. So they add 4 more, which are upaya, skillful means, resolve, spiritual force, which is bala, and jnana, which is knowledge. No one paramita is separable from the others, just as no one aspect of the teachings is separate from all of the teaching. It all comes together. But we focus tonight on patience. Patience is inseparable, for instance, from concentration. It's one of the things, if you notice in meditation, we begin by following the breath, and we have to be very patient, because a lot of the mind stream may be scattering in a lot of different directions. So patiently we come back over and over again. We bring patience to our practice. We call these perfections because we're referring to how fully they're developed and how fully they infuse our approach to life and our understanding, and are the basis of wisdom in our actions of body, speech, and mind. And in other words, when we say the perfections, we're talking about how they become actual. How do we actualize patience? What's the reality of what we're called on to be patient? We're patient or we're not patient. It's essential to develop patience, to be able to completely be present. And actually, complete presence is the perfection of patience. But before we go further, as usual, it's really helpful to take a minute to call up the body sensations that we associate with being patient, because we can easily identify what are the body sensations of being impatient. So let's look at what are the sensations of being patient in the body. We can carry an intention in the mind to be patient, and use words such as this too shall pass, or trust the process. These are thoughts, body, speech, and mind. These are mind. This is mind patience. But how about in the body? When you put your foot on the brake of the mind, of the thinking mind, and are just right here. You may notice that in meditation, if you have the experience like I do, over the course of a meditation, there's the initial stopping, but then there are more and more thorough stoppings. If it's one of those sweet periods of meditation where that happens, where the release becomes more and more thorough and subtle, and the mind really quiets down, and the body, what is the experience in the body where nothing is calling you to be beyond this moment, to have this moment be anything different? Nothing separate in the mind requiring of you. There's no hurry. There's no place else to be. How do you experience this in the body? What does it feel like? And I'm inviting anybody who would like to just to put your hands in Gasho and offer a word or two about the body experience of patience. Anybody can identify that? Junyo?
Regular breathing, rhythmic breathing.
Okay, so there's a it involves a quality of breath, and also it's rhythmic. There's a rhythm to patience. I would call it even distribution of attention. Anything else that you notice? Yeah, Doryu.
A kind of opening up, falling back, allowing. Instead of, as an antidote to the grasping and holding on to thoughts and identifying, stop and open and allow.
Okay. Yeah. And falling back.
Yeah.
Rather than a leading energy, it's open energy. What's one more? Anybody else have another way of describing that? Antetsu?
Typically, for me, it's a muscle release. I carry a lot of tension in my face and my jaw, and that is noticeably different when I'm relaxed and feeling patient.
Yeah, muscle releasing. Yeah. Lynn, you have to unmute.
Ease, a sense of ease, rather than, it's not some single, it's certain awareness of one thing. It's actually in the sort of sense of nothing holding, everything.
Yeah.
Loose.
I might add too, moist. There's a sense of moisture as opposed to dryness when I experience patience. So in concentrating on paying attention to this moment, is this the same thing as practicing patience? Concentration and patience. We don't necessarily have to bring tension into paying attention. Intention, attention, tension. We can drop out the tension. So being here now always has its own pace. Somebody mentioned rhythm and quality, all the qualities of patience. There are a variety of them. So I was thinking about just that experience we've all had of standing on a checkout line, maybe at the grocery store. Requires a certain kind of patience, depending on how long it is. So when you're standing there and you're not even thinking about being patient, you're just being, you're kind of looking around and noticing people, and you may be seeing what other people are buying or listening to the conversations going on around you. But then someone cuts in line ahead of you, and that brings up another quality of patience, which is forbearance. There's a lot that goes into forbearance. There's a certain kind of tolerating discomfort or interruption, a certain kind of holding back. We're not necessarily immediately going into a reactive mode. We may be refraining from words. We may notice, if we are people of the way, we notice what we say in our minds, how we are narrating this particular experience. That leads us to how we respond. Do we respond? So if we, patience in this case might be colored by generosity. Well, please, if it's that important, you go ahead of me. Or the skillful means can be brought up. If you're, for instance, late for an appointment and somebody cuts in front of you, you might in a patient mode explain briefly to the person that you'd love to let them go ahead of you, but you are meant to be somewhere and somebody else is waiting for you, or whatever. Or it also brings up the practice of precepts and right speech, how we use right speech. So our quality, the quality of the experience of patience changes. We might have to work with anxiety if somebody cuts in front of us, and notice the narrative that underlies that anxiety. So patience is kind of an internal energetic landscape that makes the experience of patience various according to the context that we find ourselves in. So patience is not a passive state. I mean, it can have that energy of passivity, but it's not inherent in it. The practice of patience demands flexibility and a certain kind of finesse. It's been fun. I've been thinking about patience now as I'm leading up to this talk, and also our Workaday session, which begins tomorrow, is all about patience. So I've been keeping a list of a lot of different words that relate to patience, and flexibility and finesse also. There's a certain kind of finesse that we can enjoy having when we are not pressed, when we're not pressured. We have more room to consider and to tailor response. And also, in another way, patience is not passive in that it needs to be wedded to virya, or energy, right energy. We want to bring the right amount of energy forward, and also right view. How are we interpreting the context? How we narrate the experience right now reflects the degree of commitment to practice that we have. And sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes I remember my commitment and sometimes I forget. I can be very impatient and I can forget. And so we work with that. I work with that. So if we have a vow to practice patience all the time, then we're more likely to remember to do it with more nuance. And the more we are able to practice with patience, the more completely we can recognize what is actual in the present moment, what's needed. So patience is also letting go of self, letting go of small view, which releases us from anxiety and the dissatisfaction that comes with holding tight to our agenda, as other people have mentioned. We open the hand of agenda, and agree not to be automatically wedded to our desires and aversions. So even if we have a lot to do, we can be patient. As a matter of fact, I've noticed invariably when I bring patience to a very full agenda, I create way less static and get a whole lot more done and a whole lot more fully accomplished. So less tense, more open. How much do we enjoy anything at all, when we're pressed for time, when we really let that pressure of time in? I don't know about you, but I don't enjoy anything when I'm pressed for time. So the impatience that comes with being gripped by an agenda can squash the joy out of even the simplest brief moments. So we're thinking right now about patience and impatience, but let's consider also, and this is kind of the Zen view, when we're actually patient, we're not patient. It has nothing to do with patience. Suzuki Roshi put it this way: Zen is the practice of constancy. So, when you're practicing patience, then there's patience. But sometimes there's just an openness to how things are unfolding that actually can be seen as patience, but you're not even intending it. There's just this, the way it is, whatever's going on. You're not patient, you're not impatient. Concentrating on what we're doing. And I think of my young niece, who's 7, standing on a stool at the sink, washing dishes. And she's not being patient. She's using, you know those old rotary egg beaters that you went like this in the soapy water, and really having a great time getting it really clean. And meanwhile, making a mountain of suds without any time frame, just the joy of the doing. So that's an example of not even patient. It has nothing to do with patience, not bound by time. And many of our daily tasks can call to us in this same way. Especially, this is one of the lovely things about retirement. We don't always have the luxury earlier on in life when we have so many commitments, but definitely in retirement, it's time to be able to entirely let go of impatience. And it turns a moment into play, really, when we're not in a hurry. When I'm not in a hurry, the great way opens up. This moment in its simple activity can be so joyful, open and free, free of self, free of tension, free of agenda. But appreciating the teaching of of Kshanti, the perfection of patience, isn't only about playing and having fun, because it's really a big deal and really worth practicing. It is one and the same with an open heart and a clear mind. It can take us all the way to liberation from suffering and letting go of a small self that's in charge. The impatience points us immediately to the small self, the little me, which is trying to separate from whatever is happening and is rejecting the experience. That kind of is paired with the experience of impatience. And we can enter into an incessant dissatisfaction and feeling of not enough time, not enough resource, not enough companionship, just really working against the conditions, waiting for something else to happen. And if I'm waiting for something to happen, then I'm not embracing what is happening. It's kind of like, this isn't it yet, but maybe something else will come along and be it. And how often does this impatience, this waiting, come up in meditation? Have you had the experience of waiting for the bell to ring to end the period of the sit? Anybody? I certainly have. And it's one of the amusing parts of being the timekeeper is you can sit there. And I've had this experience many times of saying, ring the bell in my mind. And then I realize, oh no, I'm ringing the bell. Still have to wait. So impatience. So what happens to our meditation in that kind of state? Or the impatience of waiting for something different to happen. So, for years, I had the experience of waiting for some special state of mind or experience to come up so that I could feel whole or authentic, something better than what I knew, something that would fulfill my humanity and show me my place in the world. And there's a certain kind of impatient energy about that. And when this happens, it means that the actual present is impeded by thoughts of the future, impeded by an idea of future, because this isn't good enough. So we can wonder, do we always have to have some idea or agenda? Or can we be free of that at times? And actually, that's the beauty of samadhi. Letting go of all agenda, we are thoroughly free of it having to be other than this. So do we always have to have some idea? And so what's the solution to a problem that we think into existence? If we think it has to be some other way, we're thinking a problem into existence. If we only have now, patience is absolutely the practice. It helps us just be released from all sense of there being a problem. And we can trust. We can trust the moment, trust our life, that this moment is complete. This moment in that way is perfect, the perfection of the moment. Patience. Patience is one of the perfections of the moment. So we can ask, do I trust that even though I have my own plans and wishes, and those plans and wishes are good, what actually happens is so much more complex than I can be aware of. Can I trust it anyway? So relaxing and trusting the collaboration of ourselves and conditions is really also part of patience. With all the influences that we may or may not know about, may we allow ourselves to be carried along in an immense and perfect collaboration with what is. This is a practice of patience. It's kind of the perfection of patience. So Gary Snyder has these 3 very stark little lines in a poem. A clear, attentive mind has no meaning, but that which sees is truly seen. It's another way of looking at patience. That which sees is truly seen with no obstruction. So may we all practice with patience and great faith that this life is complete. And we only need to realize it in every moment. Thank you.